This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. David, welcome to The Bottom Line. I think the third time now.
Third time, second episode. Well, the first two was I was talking to you and you were talking to me.
So this is our launch of The Bottom Line, co-hosted by David. It's a little bit different to our standard Bottom Line episode. So we're going to pick a topic of interest that we both like to talk about and maybe talk about things that we're seeing that's happening from our clients and have a conversation. So today's topic is going to be about why businesses fail. As we know in Australia or in globally, a lot of startups, a lot of businesses that start up tend to fail especially in the early stages. So let's dive into it. So David, as a financial planner, a lot of your clients are business owners and you've seen successes and failures. Can you sort of identify one of the areas that you see that businesses fail?
I reckon one of them would be, when someone's got an idea and they want to start a business, the first people they want to try and leverage off is family and friends. And you can't really run a business trying to make money off family and friends. You've got a good idea. You think it's a good idea. You speak to your family and your friends initially about it. But you really need to have a sales proposition and some targets to work towards, because at some time, your family and friends, those leads are going to dry up. And then where else are you going to get your leads from?
That is a great first one. I've got an actual example of that at the moment. I'm helping a client of mine who is a family friend and he started a business and it's an awesome little business. And he got it to a certain level where probably paid him the equivalent of what he would make as an employee. And it's all from family and friends. And the business has got it to a certain point. It needs to go to the next level. But that's the challenge for him right now, that he's starting to find it a little bit difficult to take it outside of the family and friend network. And I think that goes back to I had notes down from our research for this episode and a little bit of sort of experience that I have with our clients is it really goes down to marketing and branding your business and actually learning to sell the business. So in terms of sell the products that you've got. So I think the number one factor of family and friends and selling to them as a starting point is great for market research, but they also don't give you the best feedback because they're going to be biased.
Not only that as well, sometimes you think that you have a target audience that's going to sign up, but when you actually go out there, they say they will beforehand, but when you actually go out there, they're the ones that actually don't come with you. And it's the ones that you don't believe will come, do come.
David, you obviously have your own story of starting your own business. And look, you've made it through. You've joined Alexander Spencer as part of our group as the lead managing director of AS Wealth Advisors. But you would have started with family and friends. Tell us your story.
When I was working with the bank, there was a certain product that you could sell. Okay, so you couldn't go out to open market and sell just anything. So before I did start my business, I had this big idea. I believe in what I do. There's products out there that are just a byproduct of what we're actually doing. But my family and my friends are all going to sign up to this because now I actually really believe in what I'm doing, okay? I did believe in it before, but I probably didn't believe in the product I was trying to sell. So when I went out there and started my own business, you speak to family, you speak to friends, you tell them what you're going to do, and they'll say to you, yeah, you know what, I've got a business, I could potentially give you referrals. Then you get out there and you start calling these guys and they're like, oh, sorry, I'm a bit busy. Or look, you do start with family and friends, but like I said, that gets exhausted very quickly and you can use that up in the first year. Then after that, where is the income coming from?
And I think sales and marketing, we've had a lot of guests on The Bottom Line that focus on sales and marketing. So, I think educating yourself around how to market, how to sell, websites and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of tools out there. So I think that's a great tip. For me, I think this is coming from an accountant's perspective. What we see a lot of when businesses fail, and even the successful ones to a degree, just a lack of understanding of the numbers. So a lot of entrepreneurs will have a passion about what they're selling, whether it's a service or product, but they genuinely don't understand P&Ls, budgets, And a lot of them just assess the business and the success of the business based on how much money they've got in the bank account, which may be good for potential cash flow, but doesn't always tell you if your business is successful. So tend to find a lot of businesses fail because of poor financial understanding, actually looking at the metrics of their business. So really, the one thing that I'd give advice on to any entrepreneur that's starting out, to really engage in some form of education if you can't afford to pay for accountants or CFOs or whatnot, but genuinely get to understand your numbers and how you make money. And I really think that's the number one that I see a lot of, that not only will prohibit you from failing, but the ones that are successful that don't know your numbers, I genuinely believe just there's an element of success that comes from deeply understanding your financials.
I've got another one that I probably want to pick up on. And you being an accountant, I want to run this one by you, because in the first couple of years, there's one thing that usually happens that you forget about, and that's taxes. As an accountant, and I don't want to talk about this because I think you're a lot more experienced in this, expert in this. Give us an idea of how that works and how taxes are paid in the first 2 years of running a business.
I think taxes is a big factor. And I explain this to clients or people that I speak to a lot in a particular way. A lot of the time in business, in any business that we have, when you go to buy something, you either order it or you actively go out to seek that purchase. You get an invoice, it's either COD or you pay it in 30 days. Taxes is a unique beast because what happens is you don't get an invoice to pay, and it's generally done later. I'll give you an example. So the first tax is a withholding on wages. So if you have staff, you give them net wages and then you withhold the taxes on behalf of the ATO. And a lot of small businesses will be on quarterly cycles. So if you've got 3 or 4 employees and you're withholding, say, $5,000 each pay cycle, that might add up to $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 at the end of the quarter. But because you haven't chosen to buy that product and it's a withholding, that becomes a surprise in Q1. That's an example of being able to see these contingent or liabilities that are building up behind the scenes that you may not know that they existed. So tax withholding on staff salaries, superannuation is another one. Every time you pay a staff member, 11.5%, is growing to 12 next year, is required to be paid at the end of the quarter. Again, 12% or 11.5% on salaries creeps up on business owners. So they're the 2 big ones that I see quite regularly. And the big kit, the number one killer, the beast, is GST. And a lot of business owners forget that 1/11th, if they're registered for GST, is not their money. And business owners, when you go into business, you become a tax collector for the government. And that is GST. So technically what GST is, goods and services tax. You are a tax collector, you charge GST, you collect that money, you get a credit for any GST that you may have paid, but the difference has to go to the tax man. And that's how we get these wonderful roads and infrastructure. But all of those things add up and we never chose to buy them. And if you don't understand your numbers and you don't have good sort of knowledge of tax, that's where I see. That's a great example, David, because that is the number one big one that we do see around.
Just to push this forward one more, what about income tax?
Wow.
Potentially budgeting for that in the first year and how that could potentially get you into cash flow issues.
Yeah, so income tax is even worse because what happens is you trade for 12 months, you make net profit, and if you're trading out of a corporate entity and you're a small business, it'll be 25% tax. But that tax isn't due for another 9 months after the end of the financial year. So income tax, as much as it's important and it comes later, it's probably not the one that kills you, mainly because, one, there's profit. So genuinely, you've made money. So hopefully you've got the money. And it's the one that probably gets paid the latest. And if you lodge on time with your lodgements, there's a big gap between lodgement and payment. But all of these are cumulative, right? You got income tax, GST, PAYG withholding, super. And we haven't talked about other things such as payroll tax and so on and so forth. So taxes, 100% a business killer if you don't understand them.
I'm going to put another spanner in the works.
Go for it.
We spoke about the first one being sales and marketing. If the second year your income tax has to get paid and then it gets pushed out, but now we don't have any sales, you're in a lot of trouble.
100%. David, I think one of the other reasons businesses fail is just sometimes it's just poor planning, not having a business strategy or some focus. Do you have any examples of sort of potentially how you've seen some businesses that have failed where they've had this idea, they go straight ahead without any focus or planning. Can you give
Well, I
some
could probably
guidance
even
on?
touch on that with around finances and capital. Not understanding how much a business is going to cost to run. It's pure income and expenses here now. What income am I generating from the business? What are the expenses? If I don't have the money to pay for those expenses initially, how am I going to afford that? Now, usually a lot of those times that will come via a loan or financing. But what happens in the first 2 years of a business is a bank really doesn't want to deal with you when you've just started a new business, unless you've used another business prior and you're using that as collateral or security. If you're starting up a startup business, the bank really wants to see 2 years of financials before they're going to even fund your money. So I think that's really something that you really need to get in place, or understanding, where am I going to get capital from? Again, try and stay away from family and friends, because they'll say they'll do something for you and they probably won't do it. But where are you going to get that capital from? Cash flow wise, if I can't afford my expenses, because a lot of times you might need to pay for expenses before you get income coming in.
Yeah, and a lot of businesses aren't going to be making profit in the first month, or like you said, in the first maybe even year. You've got to be able to get through those years where your idea goes to market. So I think you're right. Inadequate capital and not having the right amount of capital is definitely one of the reasons that businesses fail. And sometimes we see that in the second phase of a business. We see a lot of startups here where they go through that infancy stage, they go through the fast growth stage, and they get through, but then they struggle the next phase, because to go again, to take the business to the next level, you may need capital. And you're 100% right. You do need to map out your capital and maybe start talking to financiers maybe early stage, or before you start your business, map out the cash flow needs of the business.
And that will probably come around having the right business plan as well. Because if you're trying to raise capital, if somebody, a pure investor, has a chat to you, what's the first thing they're going to ask you? Have you got a business plan? So to raise capital, you really need a strong business plan as well.
I want to take you through to your journey. You obviously started your own business. You joined another group at one point. You could have left that group and gone on your own, but you chose to come through obviously the connections that we built, but you chose to join a group and bring on partners. So one of the other things that we see in our business is that partnerships can cause complexity in relationships and so on. But if you find the right partner, I believe that there's an element of de-risking from a business success perspective. It can help mitigate the need for capital because there's two parties assisting to that. But I feel like sole traders or sole owners of business, while that could be successful, but I think by bringing in co-founders or co-partners or business partners to the arrangement, it de-risks the potential for the business to fail. And I'd love to share, why did you want to join the Alexander Spencer Group? And what did you see in us that potentially will help you, not necessarily obviously mitigate failing, but elevate success?
Well, I won't lie to you. Initially, when we were in first discussions, I wasn't sure if I wanted to join.
Yeah.
I had a business that was doing well. Before that, I had organic growth from clients. And then I've met a group that wanted to start a financial planning arm in their business. And the first thing that you do, especially once you've been in business for a while, you second guess what their
motives
motives
right?
are,
Yeah.
or why they want to do it. So I guess you put me to rest straight away, because when we had the first, second meeting, you discussed with me, look, I don't want to go into business straight away. And I always mention this one, let's get into an engagement before we get married. And you spoke to me about that, and that put me at ease. And then from there, I was able to come into the business as a joint venture, and I was able to work with some of your clients and get to know the partners and get to understand what really drives them. Is there an ulterior motive as to why they want me here, or do they actually just want the best for me? And then I guess off the back of that now, going into business with another company or a joint venture or partners, whichever way you're looking at it, it does de-risk you, because, well, you've got a business that they're buying into. There's got to be some sort of capital injection on their side, or you're growing the business together. So you're both putting in some more money into the business, but they're also there to assist you. They're also there to give you ideas, not just in regards to what you're doing, but operations as well. Okay. And I think that's a big thing, because now it's not just me on my own. I'm going into this with somebody else, and they're going to give me their expertise or things that they've learned in over the last 5, 10, 20 years of doing business that could assist me in my business as well.
I 100% agree with that, David, because if you bring in the right partner and actually it complements the skills that you bring, again, it limits the potential for a business to fail.
And just on that, I think about just even the last 6 to 9 months that I've been here. And, I could walk past your office or you could walk past my office and you can see you're thinking about something. And it's just being able to have that person to come to you as well and say, hey, what's on your mind at the moment? It's something personal or it's something to do with a specific client, and you work through that together. Now, if you're doing something on your own, you don't really have that, you might even play in your head a little bit.
And like I said, leadership or owning a business can be quite a lonely place. So I appreciate that. I do like coming into your office, David. It's always fun. But yeah, so definitely you've been a star as part of the team.
So I'm going to put forward one to you. You would see this quite a lot being an accountant because you probably see the business a lot more frequently than a financial advisor. Give me an idea of what potentially spending habits of a client.
You probably get to see the spending habits of the customers where you go through their home budgets. But one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, especially lately with interest rates going up, people over the years with interest rates being lower, overcommitting on, either a home loan or trying to keep up with the Joneses. Everyone wants a Louis Vuitton bag and the fancy watch and the fancy car, and they're chasing this personal life at home. So I feel like sometimes when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting something from the ground, you really got to be not so much humble, but you need to understand that every dollar in your business is helping you grow your wealth and grow your income. But I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, if they don't have the right mindset of why they're in business or they're not focused in the right areas, what I'm starting to see a lot of, especially in sort of the younger generation, or maybe it's the early 20s, but sort of that between the 30 to 40-year-old age bracket, where they're chasing this personal financial wealth dream and they're pulling out more money than the business can really afford. An example of that is when we talked about taxes. So a lot of these situations that where the ATO ends up being the last one to get paid, a lot of the time when businesses go bad, the one that gets screwed in the deal is the ATO because they get paid last because they ask for the money last and they don't send an invoice until you self-declare. And generally what happens is the owners starts to see revenue coming in. They see the top line revenue and they go, I'm making profit. So $1,000 goes in, $3,000 goes in. And if they're used to being an employee where they get paid fortnightly or monthly or whatever it is, business revenue and expense is very different.
One's net, one's gross.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're not managing their money well. Maybe they've got a girlfriend that they want to impress, or they've got a wife that has a bad spending habits or whatever it is, or they're chasing this dream. They take too much money out and that kills businesses. What happens is it's not like they're taking it out and giving it to you to invest. And that's a big one. And I reckon it takes 1 or 2 cracks at these guys before they learn that that's not the right thing to do.
And they might not even be taking it out of the business. They might be spending it in the business, but thinking that they can actually spend that money going out for lunches with clients. And, they don't really have the cash flow to do so, but their spending habits probably change because they think the business will pay for it.
So 100% get good advice, find a good accountant or someone that you trust, or do some learning, because money management, especially at startups, is really, really important.
Just on that, I remember a girl saying once, she was going on a flight and she went first class and she goes, oh, the business is paying for it. And I thought to myself, you're still paying for it.
I get that with cars, right?
Yeah.
So what happens, clients will ring me or I'll be out and they don't know I'm an accountant. I hear these things, I bought a new BMW or I bought this. Oh, it's a company car. I'm like, oh, who owns the company? And they're like, oh, that's my company. I'm like,
you're still paying it.
You're paying for it.
It just reduces your bottom line.
Or they'll go, oh, it's only $800 a month. I'm like, yeah, but there's, rego, insurance, depreciation. Or they load up the balloon, right? So it's $800 a month, but they got this massive balloon. Like, oh, I love that you raised that, Dave, because you do see it. You see this, oh, the business is paying for it or whatever. It's just ludicrous. And I think if you're not going into business for the long term with a vision in mind, and you have to take sacrifices. People think being in business, it's easy, it's going to be this, money-making machine, but it's actually harder to manage businesses because as an employee, generally the transition is you're not comfortable the younger generation being very brave, and I love that. They're coming straight out of uni, straight into business before they've gotten a job. But a lot of us have a job first, and we're used to the regular income coming in. When that stops and you're in business, it's a different world. So I think being prepared for that is really, really important, and understanding that there's going to be challenges. So my advice, and I think I've said this on another podcast, go and speak to other entrepreneurs that have failed and pick the brains of the ones that you think you can really learn from.
Do you reckon social media has ruined things like business and, people wanting to get into business? You mentioned before about, the glitz and glamour and people showing a specific lifestyle. Do you reckon social media has affected that? And for the reasons people are getting into business for the wrong reasons?
David, I love that. I watched this TikTok the other day, and I agree with you. Social media, the perception of you got to drive around in Ferraris and wear, fancy watches. I'm going to show you a TikTok and tell me what you think about this as a financial advisor.
If you're a guy in your 20s and you don't have a Lamborghini, you should actually sit down and have like a serious discussion with yourself as to why you don't have a Lambo. Because I realize now that it's so incredibly easy and there's so much money out there, and 200 grand relative to what is out there in circulation and what you can grab, especially now with AI tools that you can leverage like never before, 200 grand is chump change.
Firstly, the first thing I'm going to say, where can I get a Lamborghini for $200,000? Because if you can, let me know.
I'm tipping it's in USD, but
but still, even if you turn that to USD, you wouldn't get a Lamborghini for it. So this guy, firstly, doesn't even know what he's talking about.
David, you're the finance man. This guy's talking about money being in circulation. There's so much money in circulation, we should grab it. What's he talking about there?
Money from circulation. He might have saved up money during COVID when everyone was giving money out. But from what I can see at the moment, there's not a lot of money in circulation. A lot of people are doing it tough, even just to live. And just look at how much people's lifestyles change with interest rates increasing.
And this bloke reckons it's easy, it's money grab. Go out and get some AI tools. He talked about AI tools. It's being really easy. But I reckon, it goes back to what we were saying. It's about chasing this, I want to look good, I want to present, not so much look good, but I want to, play a role that society thinks I should play. And I go back to what you said. Social media has its advantages. You can get some amazing content from there. You can learn from there. YouTube Shorts, the education that comes out. But I've got young kids, David, and I kind of fear for the things that they're getting educated through social media that isn't real life. If it drives him to start a business and work hard, I've got no issues with that. But they think it's a money grab, and they, like you said, have no idea.
You know what the funny thing is, though? We were just watching this video now. This guy's probably made $200,000 of sending that video because people have been watching it. So
maybe we're the deals. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe we can make some social videos out of this content. But I think that's bad. And David, if you don't have a Lambo in your 20s, does it really mean you're a failure?
I didn't even know what I wanted to do in my early 20s still. So I don't think you're a failure. But as long as you're a better person than you are the day before, all you're fighting with is yourself. That's what I think anyway. As long as you can be a better person than you were yesterday, you feel like you've come a bit further than you were yesterday, it's all that matters.
And to be honest with you, it reminds me, if you're going to go out and buy a $200,000 Lambo, you're better off spending $200,000 on making yourself better. Like you said, put your money into some education. I reckon you could throw around 200 grand to some seriously high net wealth individuals that can probably help you become a millionaire, billionaire. This guy wants to go out and buy a Lambo. But anyway, David, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Our first episode, Why Businesses Fail. I've really enjoyed the chat. How do you think we went?
I think as we go, the more podcasts we do, the cooler I'm going to be.
I love it. David, thank you for joining me on The Bottom Line.
No worries. Thank you for joining me on The Bottom Line as well.
Thanks, David. This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952. And we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.